Hello, and welcome back to Trading Weekly for another episode and the final one of August. It's August 31st, heading into the 1st of September tomorrow. Massive, obviously, shout out for it's going to be a market off tomorrow. I've started a bit wobbly there. So, what are you doing tomorrow, okay? Are you preparing your trades or just chilling
Happy,
out with the family?
happy Sunday first of all to everybody, and then yes,
Yeah.
the markets are closed in observation of Labor Day. So, like for folks who are eagerly waiting for the market to open, unfortunately, you'll have to wait until Tuesday. Make sure if you place trades on Friday and you expect it to settle down, it won't settle until I guess probably Wednesday because that's when they'll run the batch on Tuesday when they will open. So yeah, it's one of those weeks, shorter weeks. I think people are coming back from vacation, so we might not see a lot of volume, I guess. But hey, looking forward to the market opening.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one. Before we get kicked off, obviously, the disclaimer is we're just a couple of guys looking at charts, giving our thoughts and perspectives on the charts. Obviously, we just kind of used it for a bit of fun. So it's not financial advice, as always. We must say that, of course. But yeah, if you can learn something from these episodes, then fantastic. That's what we're here for. Obviously, massive thank you to Wolf as well for letting us use the platform. We really, really appreciate it. We do it every week and we love it, of course. Why otherwise we wouldn't be here. And of course, stick your audience requests in the comments down below. We've had a few already. I'm sure that the regulars will come back with theirs. But there you go. There's the banner up on the screen there for you. So put your tickers and requests in the comments. We'll get to them in about 15 or 20 minutes or so, kind of normal. Well, maybe even less than that, actually. About 15 minutes. We'll call it there. And of course, subscribe to the Trading Weekly on YouTube. We really do appreciate your support on that. We're working on a few things kind of heading into the end of the year. We're just a little bit busy now. Obviously, summer is summer. You kind of enjoy the days as they are. You enjoy the weekends as they are. But once those nights start rolling in, we'll start pumping out that content a little bit more. Yeah. So, how was your trading week, Kay? Let's move on to that, shall we?
The trading week was pretty good. I would say I was pretty conservative this week. Okta did play out pretty well for me. They did decent, I would say. We had Google Trade. Google Trade was a big success, and I entered into the Monday trade. So Monday trade also played out pretty well. So
Awesome. Yeah. From my end, I think I just managed a few swing trades going forward. Obviously, the Rivian one did quite well. We'll touch on that a little bit later on. It didn't do really well, but it did well enough to, warrant a good amount of success from that. And I played one day trade, I think, in the week, which worked out really, really nicely for me as well. So had a nice green week this week and just kind of kept, like you said, had a little step back and kind of assessed where I was in the market, etc. It's a tricky market at the moment because it's at all-time highs. So anyway, enough of me rambling. We've got a coming up here from Man Ram. Thank you for coming back week after week. We appreciate it as always. AXON, Crowd, and
cool,
CRWV. Cool
cool.
Wave. Yeah, we've had that one before, haven't we?
Yeah.
So look, let's jump into the slideshow. It's been a few minutes now, and I've waffled enough. Obviously, as I mentioned, the market is closed tomorrow, so we'll open from Tuesday. Last week's performance, it's been a bit of a mixed bag actually. So you've got things like Microsoft and Meta kind of trading flat. Nvidia obviously had earnings. We'll talk about that in just a second. I'm sure Kay has a few words on that. Apple up modestly around about 2-3% ish. Google though pushing up to 5%, which is absolutely amazing. Breaking into all-time highs throughout the week, which is exciting for those Google investors and traders. Just above our heads, we've got Tesla there at 3.8%. Just it thought like it looks like it's going to break out of a trend line, but it kind of dipped back below. Maybe someone will bring up Tesla a bit later on. We can go over that chart. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the week that's just happened, okay?
Well, I think Nvidia not selling off and being basically flat for the week, I think that was a huge win, even because it is already trading at all-time highs. Um, and I think everything end of the day rests on how the China market progresses for Nvidia, whether they are able to sell a higher powered H200 or whatever the chip name is, or Blackwell chips or whatever works out end of the day. Because if that market is not open for Nvidia or AMD or any US companies to really sell, I think that's just a loss from our side perspective, right? I mean, it's a massive market, the China market. um,
Yeah.
I think Google has been pretty phenomenal. I was very surprised with the Google breakout, I will tell you that.
Yeah, it's been a surprise to many, I think, but it just kind of obviously the market was kind of flat, if not slightly down this week. We'll
Yeah.
jump into the charts in a bit, and Google powering on nicely, perhaps just kind of edging up Spy QQQ just kind of on its own. And as you say there, like, Apple hasn't had a bad week either. Apple was obviously quite a big percentage of that. We'll move on to the next slide. We've got the fear and greed index. Of course, we're sitting at about 64. Last week was sitting at 61. And a month ago, around about 70. So we're kind of floating around this area. But I was thinking about this earlier, and I was having a look at the fear and greed. I think we've got another leg up possibility, just because in April we were sitting right down in extreme fear around about 3, which is a very extreme case. Normally come down to kind of 15, 10 mostly, but then obviously we pushed back up after that. So I'm kind of looking for a bit of a pump into extreme greed. I'm not too sure how that's going to happen with September coming along. Typically a kind of weaker month, but we did say that about August. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in September for that. But I'm looking to kind of roll my positions kind of into September, into that extreme greed on the fear and greed index. What about yourself, Kaye?
I mean, I would definitely be a little bit more careful, especially for the first half of September, because there's just a lot of events happening. Number one of these will be the rate reduction, right? That the big meeting everybody's waiting for. Um, so if we get the rate cut as assumed, we could see a little bit of a rally and maybe a pullback. But that's the problem, we don't understand what's going on. So even though we are all-time highs, I'm still not very comfortable or not very bullish, even though we are in the green. Something seems off, and I don't know how to put it. It's just I don't get this very bullish feeling on how just things are progressing in general.
You're quite skeptical of the
Yeah,
markets at the
yeah,
moment, then,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's normal. I think a lot of people are kind of feeling like that, and perhaps that's why we're seeing a bit of stagnant price action. You can see on the screen, obviously, SPY basically flat, and QQQ basically flat on the week, and that's with a massive catalyst of Nvidia earnings that has already happened.
And this is by
And
the
had
way, this is almost 2 or 3 weeks in a row where all tech reported earnings. We have been seen pretty flat out, right? There's really not much movement.
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next earnings report as well, because do we just plod along and companies keep beating, these tech companies keep beating? Because there will come a time where they will just stop beating, right? Surely that's how market
And that
cycles work.
I know a lot of Nvidia critics started complaining about the rate of growth has slowed down. Well, um, of course, I mean, if you cannot keep, if you had, like, you jumped from 1 billion in revenue to, let's say, 11 billion in revenue, then you jump from 11 billion to, I guess, 25 billion. So you cannot keep going up at the same rate, quarter over quarter over. At some point in time, your rate of growth will go down. However, a company like Nvidia or any other Max 7, they are still growing. It's the growth has not slowed. The growth has not reversed. The growth is
Mm,
still there. It has just slowed down. So the multiples have to be accordingly. Now, again, you have to think from a perspective, like, when you listen to these people, most of these people, they are all institutional money. So for them, the holding period is 1 year for being a long-term investor. It's not like they are managing a money, like, you're investing in S&P 500 for the rest of your life, because it's a client money, right? As retail investor, we have to think from two different lens: investing versus trading.
exactly right. And I think we spent quite a lot of time on this slide, so we'll move on to the next one. And this is upcoming earnings. Not a lot to report here. Obviously, you're covering Salesforce, which is reporting after the market closed on Wednesday. We also have Lululemon, which is quite a popular name,
Yeah.
and obviously a big name for me before market open on Tuesday. So it's going to be an interesting day that day, because obviously we're going to have deliveries, hopefully record deliveries released on Monday, and then earnings on Tuesday, and that's obviously when the market opens. So it's going to be an interesting day for me on Tuesday. It'll be, yeah, I think it'll be fun. Any other names that kind of
Yeah,
pop
I
off
mean,
the screen here?
there are actually a lot of names. On Zscaler, another one. If you are into
This one.
CrowdStrike, and that is there. You have GitLab, Figma, which recently IPO'd. I think a lot of eyes will be on that stock. I am particularly not interested, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people would be. And then on Thursday, you have Broadcom, the big chip giant.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
DocuSign and UiPath. Again, from the realm of the SaaS standpoint.
you've got UiPath as well. I know a few things have happened with this in the last year or so. It's an
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
company that's not performed so well on the charts, let's say.
It's been
But
a
obviously,
Yeah, it's been a very I would say so
Yeah.
performance.
So we're definitely coming towards the end of earnings season now, and it won't be long until the next one starts up, of course. I've read a few comments. Obviously, we've got them from Money Managed. Thank you for coming back week after week. We appreciate it. Kaye's already written these down. I know he has. And of course, Avi, say we've had you before on the stream. Welcome back. AFRM, we will definitely get to that. It was up a handsome 10%, I think it was on Friday. So we'll have a look at that a little bit later on. And Liverpool just scored, so I'm happy about that. Anyway, that's not related. So let's move on to the charts then. The first one of the day, we've got SPY and QQQ. You can see on the left side here, we've got SPY, lots of volume kind of supporting Friday's action. We did have a bit of a dip down on Friday, but the buy is kind of stepping in towards the end of the day, bringing it back up, which is, I think, positive for another leg higher, in my opinion. Of course, don't take it for gospel, but I do think we're going to keep marching up higher until we get to that extreme greed on the fear index, as I mentioned earlier. And just a brief kind of touch on the right side of the screen here, we've got QQQ. This is the weekly chart. So we had a nice week the week before. We've got a bit of a doji candle on this last week. So it's a bit undecided, but we are kind of hovering around the support level of about 570. What are your thoughts on these charts, MK?
That's, as I said, right. The next 2 weeks, I'm just on a holding pattern at this point in time. I don't see any other catalyst that, I mean, Nvidia earnings did not move the market, which was expected to at least, in either direction would move the market, but
Yeah,
it didn't,
not at all either. Not
right?
even an inch. Yeah.
Which means that the focus is actually has been beyond the earnings now. We are actually focused on probably the FOMC rate cut. I think that is probably going to be the next catalyst. Whether we reverse course, we do a correction, a pullback, whatever you want to call it, depending on the percentage, or we make a leg higher. But I do think that the market is definitely due for some sort of a pullback or correction, because
Yeah.
you're looking for October, November, December sort of a rally. I don't know if we have enough steam left to do that. If we start running in September, and generally September is not a great month, as I said, like August and September are not the best months. So August did decent well, I would say, but then again we have September.
So when is the FOMC meeting? Not FOMC meeting. The FOMC meeting. See if we get a cut.
Yeah.
It's in September, I know, but I don't know what date it is specifically. Because typically, data shows obviously that when you start cutting, the market kind of goes against that because obviously it's pricing in future
Let
6
me.
to 9 months in advance.
Oh,
So
it's
we might get.
September 16th and 18th.
Okay,
That's
so we've still got 2 or 3 weeks to kind of get
yeah,
into that data fully.
yeah.
So it'd been interesting a couple of weeks following that data. So if we do get a
Correct.
bit of a pullback, as you just mentioned, perhaps people thinking, okay, now the rates have started, we can start taking a bit of profits. Obviously, the economy is turning slightly. So yeah, we'll move on to. Where's my mouse? There we go. We'll move on to the next slide here. We've kind of got a few offerings. I'll let you go first this week, Kay.
Well,
What have you got?
as we say it every single week, we have the Substack where I write pretty regularly, and it offers both the investing side of the shop as well as the trading side of the shop. Now, this earning season has been a little tricky, so that's why I have not been posting a lot of trades, because the setup is not there, and you don't want to lose money on those setups. But I'm also providing some inputs on some next big baggers for the next year or so. And then, of course, YouTube channel is there. You can follow me there as well. And then Twitter or X, where we post daily content.
Yeah, specifically like your earnings breakdowns, whether it be before or after.
Yeah.
The anticipation from an earnings and obviously the breakdown afterwards as well. So they're pretty good, and that's on X. And of course, I spoke about the Substack as well. For me, I've just basically post daily quite a lot on X. It's worth following. It's about psychology, kind of trading, kind of evergreen trading content, that kind of thing. And the same on YouTube as well. All my videos are evergreen, so you can come back to them at a later date and improve your trading journey like that. And the last one there, you can see a little chart. That's a ticker request system, which you can come onto and just basically request unlimited tickers, and we will give you unlimited analysis. It's not just me; it's another guy as well, doing some analysis for that. So yeah, that's it for our offerings. We'll move on to the next slide, which is our weekly performance. And I actually won for the first time in 3 weeks, as you can see on the screen there. My last 3 weeks have been Hymns, Marvel, and Barber, which haven't been so good. But I didn't really win from a move. It just kind of won from default almost. So Rivian was just up 3% over the week. Nothing really happened. It didn't really break out as such. It didn't. But Nvidia just didn't move, did it? I mean, it could have been a lot worse for Nvidia. It could have been a lot better for Nvidia, but it just traded flat. So
For
how,
for a,
yeah.
for a earnings week, the stock trading flat was quite shocking, I would say.
Exactly, especially given the last couple of years worth of moves post earnings, this will definitely skew those results for sure. I think going into the future earnings, it will kind of bring those percentages down with the kind of predicted moves for Nvidia. But nevertheless, we're looking good going into the year end 14.6, and we'll leave it at that, shall we, Kay? Okay, let's move on to my pick of the week, which is Grab Holdings. I haven't brought this one up much in the past. And to be honest with you, I was looking through the charts over the weekend, yesterday morning, with a cup of coffee, and I was just looking through some charts. I thought there's not many obvious opportunities, and this one still isn't obvious for me, in my opinion, just because we obviously have the support at the moment, which we've got volume profile, we've got the trend line here, and the moving averages, which I don't have on the screen just because it was too noisy. They're floating around this area, and this is the 2-day chart. It's the same for the 1-day chart as well, pretty much. So you could have a high risk entry here because it could very easily break that to the downside, or you could wait for this price action to kind of go in this direction if the move is to go like that. And of course, if it breaks this resistance, come back down and retest it, that would be my optimal entry point of 550 to get up to 609, which is essentially 10%, just under 10%. But there's no reason why you can't start a smaller position here and then add to it as it kind of goes up in this momentum. Again, I caveat with that with saying if it goes in that direction. And the stop loss at the moment is down around about 465. I haven't entered this trade. I'm still thinking about it. Of course, I wanted to wait for the long weekend, have that price action play out. And as you mentioned earlier, Kay, see what the volume is like in the market overall on Tuesday morning. Plus, I've got other things to worry about with the Neo position. So
Mm, yeah.
we'll keep this one to one side for now. But that my kind of thoughts kind of going into it. I know you like this company, don't you, Kay? What are your thoughts on Grab?
Well, I think I'm looking at it from a perspective of a swing trade or even a position trade, which basically I'm building out a position and hoping that in the next 2 to 3 years it would play out the way it is being set up. Now, for folks who are not very familiar with Grab, is basically it started off like a Uber of Southeast Asia. Now they have expanded into a lot of other offerings with a financial arm as well, and food delivery arm, typical Uber style. And I think super apps are more popular on the east side of the world, especially China and Japan and those places in Southeast Asia. Super app concept does not exist here in the US, but over there these offerings are a lot more. So as Grab tends to expand further and further into different regions on that area, I think this presents an asymmetrical opportunity. You see a lot of coverage from Wall Street. You see a lot of coverage from other analysts, which are non-Wall Street analysts as well on coverage. On Twitter also, you have a pretty big group who follows Grab. So that's why I think I'm also kind of like getting interested. Now, the only caveat is because this is not a US company, sometimes that thesis may take longer to play. So if you're expecting a 10x from the stock, and your time horizon is 2 years, it might take 5 years for it to play, because just because it's a Southeast Asian company, it's not a US company. But that's generally that's generally how I'm looking at it from a position trade standpoint, not like
Yeah.
any trade. Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting information. Just going back to the chart, we've got this is the 2-day chart, as I mentioned earlier. So this is actually November of last year. So you can see it's kind of building this kind of base around this sort of area. I know it's a very large base from about $4 to $5, but it's significant in the long run. So when you see it kind of 20 and 25 perhaps in the future, then you'll look back at this and think, oh, actually that was quite a tight and quite small, important base for the stock moving forward. But yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting one. I've definitely got on my radar for not only trading but also long term as well. I haven't started that position yet, but perhaps I should consider it moving on into the weeks ahead, the months ahead. And we'll move on now to your pick of the week, which is CRM,
Yeah.
Salesforce, who
Yeah.
report earnings, don't they?
Yeah, so they are reporting earnings on Thursday, and let me just state out the obvious here. It's not like CRM is one of my favorite SaaS companies. It's in a very interesting spot technically. That's why I think it would either there are a couple things that happen. So let me get my notes out here. Number one, first, so CRM is down what 27% year to date, and they are sitting right below all the major moving averages. So you can look at 50, 100, 200, 300. So if you're a long-term investor, great place to add. Most recently, you saw Snowflake had that gap up after earnings. Could that happen with CRM as well? Most likely, because there is a lot of positive sentiment. I think there's 61% positive sentiment on CRM having an upside. Now, the key is that option markets pricing bigger move than history. Generally, they don't have a very big move. They are generally within the same range of the move. But this time, the option market is like, maybe we'll have a bigger move. So right now, the trade idea for this would be I would still stick with IREN Condor if I want to play this, which I probably will. Um, and the implied move is about 6.5 to 7%. So at this point of time, I'm expecting a move towards the upside only if, and this is a big if their agentic AI promises from the past few quarters actually starts to show results. Because it was 2 quarter or 3 quarter ago, the CEO said, hey, we have about 50% of our coding is done by our AI. So it has to change into paid customers, right? And that is where the buck is. Because all we keep hearing from hyperscalers, we are just building data center after data center after data center and NVIDIA and this and that and all that mumbo jumbo. But if these companies are not able to convert that into paid customers for those services, nothing is going to work. So the agentic AI piece is very, very important. That's so.
Yeah,
So either to the upside or the downside, I think most positive is an upside, but I'll still play an iron condor.
that's interesting to see your kind of thoughts going into earnings. But very positive, aren't they?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and you've got the RSI down here sitting around about 50, 50, 60. So it's quite well positioned for a move either way. It's important to note that obviously we have had the RSI down in the 25, actually fairly recently. This is what the day chart. Yeah, so about 3 weeks ago, we were down in the dumps around down about here. So obviously the stock can move further, and I would be looking definitely to kind of regain some of these moving averages if it was to go to the upside. And of course, breaking this trend line, which you've beautifully drawn there on the screen. So there's definitely a lot going for it if it can get back above there. So perhaps we get that move to kind of 280, 290, and then I would expect maybe a pullback down to 270, and that might be the optimal entry for further upside going ahead. So that's my thoughts on the chart, and I would be trading this obviously, as you know, with shares, or maybe some YOLO calls perhaps. But no, I don't really do that. So yeah, I think the last thing I wanted to mention actually was the MACD, which you can't quite see. So
yeah.
we'll move ourselves to the right side, and it's just curling up nicely. It doesn't really mean much kind of going into the earnings, but it's nice to see that the momentum is there for the stock going forward into the week ahead. But yeah, no, I like it, Kay. Very interesting. I'm not too sure we're getting any comments from X. I don't think that's linked perfectly. So we are going to have to come up with some basic names, I think, or people that are watching on YouTube. Go ahead and pump in some more names, please. We'll have a look at those. Just had another one from XH1122. Alibaba, please.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I picked that, didn't I, a couple of weeks ago?
Yes, it did.
And it moved really nicely because it had really positive earnings that came out on Friday. Well, the earnings weren't great, but the news around the chip and the kind of AI cloud segment is actually really quite impressive moving forward. So that's obviously accelerated the stock kind of 12, 13%. But yeah, we'll add that to the list. And anyone who is watching watching on YouTube, keep putting those names. We'll get to those a bit later on because
But
YouTube is not. Sorry.
yeah, I'm saying, and one of the main reasons is because today this is the last long weekend, before school opens,
All
and
right.
this is the last long weekend of the summer. So I'm pretty sure folks are,
Well,
taking.
I don't think it's linked in terms of the chat at all.
Yeah.
So the X people that are watching, which they are watching, I can see them watching. I've had a look at it. There's not a link to the chat, so they can't actually put any ticker requests in it. So I do apologise for that. It's one of the restream things. Oh no, there is one there. No, okay, so it must be working. So we've had UNH from Bernadette.
Yeah.
How weird. Not too sure what's going on. Restream's a funny platform, but we run with it. We run with it. So yeah, let's jump into the charts then. What we got up first, then, Kay?
First is up UP. and I've never heard of this. So let's see what it is. It's called Wheels Up Experience Inc. And
So
what do they do? Let's
it's a
see.
$3 stock by the looks of it.
So they provide private aviation services in US and internationally. They offer membership programs that consist of two primary membership categories: individual, okay.
It's a
Um,
good few weeks, that's for sure. Gone up from 120.
passenger airline industry. So basically, it seems like interesting.
This might be one of those where he brings it up and says, "Yeah, I've been in it since 120."
I guess, yeah.
It's up over 100% in the last 3 weeks alone. So yeah, whoever's got into that is very,
Happy.
very happy. Yes, as you mentioned. And but we do have a little bit of a volume profile here on the right. So maybe if it retreats back down to the kind of the $2 mark, could be worth getting into with a nice tight stop loss. But it's going to be tricky because you're looking at least 20%, 30% stop loss, which is a bit of a high risk one. But there is possible upside, further upside ahead. Just needs a little bit of a pullback to $2, let's say. Right, let's move on.
Next up is AFRM.
This one, I think you're more tailored towards, that's for sure. Did you? I didn't actually see the results of the earnings, but it looks like it might be
I
quite
did not
positive.
actually. Yeah, unfortunately, this entire season I've been so busy that I didn't get a chance to look at it. But let's look at it. Why don't you? Let me pull up the earnings quickly. So they had a beat on top and bottom line, which is not surprising. They've been doing pretty well, and they beat it by a good $39 million. So that's a good sign. Um, See, I think so the way a firm, I think, in my personal opinion, the BNPL system in general, I think morally, again, it's a moral question. Not even moral. I think it's from a financial savviness perspective. I think it's if you are using a BNPL system to buy T-shirts, I think it's you shouldn't be buying that T-shirt to begin with. But again, keeping that point aside, I think as the market weakens, folks lose their jobs and the economy weakens, I think BNPL is set to get more successful because then you are able to sponsor the product through installments, which generally you might not be available if you're buying directly from the store. So I think that the business model works better when the economy is humming, and the business model works even better when the economy is not humming.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of buy now, pay later. I think it's a
Exactly.
tricky,
I'm not, yeah, because
tricky cycle to get into. Yeah.
exactly,
Um,
and it's like you're having credit. So as a financial, working towards the financial freedom, I think you are doing the same. I'm doing the same. A lot of people are watching are probably doing the same. From that perspective, I think it's not the right thing to do, but I can understand from a company standpoint. I think when the economy is humming, man, this is. I mean, why would I pay $1,000 to, let's say, pay my tickets if I can split that into 250 payments 4 times, right? Without paying any interest, because a lot of times they offer 0% interest for
yeah,
installments. You pay
that's the appeal, isn't it? Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah, I think even in my bank actually does that as well. It kind of gives you a certain limit that you can borrow, and it gives it so you 0%. I've not used it personally, but I know a lot of people do. But I just think if you can't afford it, don't buy it. I understand people in different situations, and obviously, yeah, in my situations that's not too bad. So yeah, we'll move on to the next stop, shall we?
next is Bull.
Actually,
Yeah,
well,
go ahead.
before that, I actually have my take on the technical analysis of this, did I? Obviously, we have had a pump up to $100, which is amazing for a firm, considering where it was just a few months ago. Coming back down to 81, I think would be quite important because we do have that previous resistance set here, and that would act as a nice support, kind of moving on back up to 100. Just a nice, slow, smooth, and steady kind of move. Something like this would be perfect, like stocks do. Anyway,
Yeah,
let's move on.
and I think if you just switch to the weekly per se, it's a nice higher highs, higher low, higher lows.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's beautiful. If you got into it kind of at the lows here, you're doing very well, obviously. Even if you got into it here, which makes more sense because you've got lots more support for the moving averages and the volume here on the right side. Even from 53 to 81, 88, kind of whatever it is now, it's a good 40%. Well, actually about 80%, I think.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. Next is Bull.
Oh, okay. Wow. This one's all over the place, I think. So this one, it was down 7% on Friday. Not a good day. This is the 2-day chart. I will go to the 1-day chart. If I misclicked that, I think the hype might be over. This one kind of follows. It's like a sympathy play to Robinhood. Obviously, it's kind of a similar sort of product, but this price action is not good. Big kind of bearish engulfing, kind of losing the volume here on the right side. Lost the trend line, lost the moving averages. Looks like downside is the way it's going, perhaps somewhere around $12. So if the market takes a downside, then perhaps these are the names you could play because you make the most money on these names in the downside. Do you agree with that statement, Kaye? If you're kind of trading the lower stocks, the more volatile stocks, if the market goes against you,
Yeah,
having that
you
money into here for puts and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. You basically get stuck holding the bag for a long term, right? I mean, for some stocks, you might see a reversal at some point in time, but for most of the stocks, like so Robinhood is a success story, Palantir is a success story, but I can give you another 10 names that were not successful in rebound.
exactly. And you've got the volume here, it's spiked up in on the downside, so that could be a potential momentum maker. To the downside, even further, shall we say. Yeah, I wouldn't be buying this name, that's for sure.
I mean, not at this point in time. And then, I think Robinhood per se. So Robinhood has had a very different impact on retail investment or retail investors per se, and even the general market. Right, like Robinhood was the first company that introduced no commission trade. That was huge. Before that, you had to pay, I guess, $3, $4 for every trade that you place. Today, you don't. I mean, for folks who just started trading, they don't even remember having to pay for placing a trade, whether it's a buy or a sell. Stock I'm talking about, not even options. Options you
Mm.
still have to pay. Um, Robinhood was the first company to introduce that. There is nothing Webull has done. Webull is a good company, but you can't compare Robinhood to Webull. Two separate.
Sometimes the best horse to back is the one that's in front.
Yeah, this is why a lot of people they are always after AMD because they missed the Nvidia run. And my take is why not? I mean, I will still put my money on Nvidia. I'll put my money on AMD also, but I don't expect AMD to suddenly come and replace Nvidia and become the next big thing. It doesn't always happen.
There you go. Let's move on.
Okay, next is AXON. I don't know what it is.
I've seen the ticker, but I don't think I've ever done any research on it.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know. Let me see. So they develop, manufacture, and sell conducted energy devices under the Taser brand in the US and internationally. They operate in software, sensors, and Taser. They also offer hardware and cloud-based software solution enable law. You know what? I think somebody had asked about this long time back. Not long time back, maybe a couple months back. Or was it one of those prison stocks? Do you remember somebody was brought up prison stock?
yeah,
Like,
I do remember that. Yeah, I don't remember the ticker name, but I do remember us talking about prisons for a little while. That was fun.
yeah, yeah. So this is okay.
So we've got here on the daily chart's not really telling me much, apart from there might be a bit of support here, kind of 700. As you can see there, obviously resistance, big resistance, massive resistance actually, back in February of this year, and then good support, good, not the best support, but a good amount of support here back in July, not so long ago. Perhaps it's retreating back down to there. If we break that to the downside, I'd be looking at this gap fill. I know that you're looking at this gap fill already on the screen. Perhaps this is not a name that you'll get into, but it's worth sticking on the watch list. We always try and put as much on our watch list from these sessions. Yeah,
We just got the money managed gave us the
I
tickers.
suppose.
The Geo group, the prison.
There you go. At least someone was listening.
Yes.
Thank you, Money Manage, for keeping us on top of things there. But yeah, let's move to the weekly because I wanted to see the weekly because the moving averages might be a bit more appealing. Yeah, so got the 20 moving average coming up nicely behind it. It's acted not quite, but it's acted as a bit of support in recent weeks. It just needs a bit of a move beyond that, doesn't it? Really.
But that was a
Uh,
pretty ugly candle on Friday, right? That you will call it an engulfing candle, right, on the daily.
Let's have a look. Let's go back to the daily. Yeah, I mean that is definitely an engulfing candle, and it's a horrible candle because it's down 4%. And for a big stock like this, so it's the amount is $750, ish. 4% day it's a big day for a stock like this. And you can kind of see with a little bit of a trend line here. It looks like it's just kind of breaking that to the downside. So it looks like perhaps more downside is in for this stock, AXON Enterprise. But I've been looking at 706, as I mentioned, a bit of support there. I'll leave that on the screen for now. I like it, but I'm not going to play it. I'll just watch it, I think. See where it goes. No, really
Right.
down.
Next is a crowd favorite, CrowdStrike.
I did look at this chart earlier, and I think it's recovered quite nicely, isn't it? Oh no, I'm looking at a different chart. I was thinking of a different chart.
I mean, imagine if you actually, and I know a lot of people who actually entered when we had the Microsoft debacle happened with CrowdStrike. The stock dipped to like $200. I mean, if you held through all this since then, you're sitting very handsomely.
I tell you what, though, there might be a reason why Man Ram has brought this one up because he knows that I like a retest of a trend line, and you can see that on the screen here now. Just going to zoom out, get some more volume on the screen. Obviously, we have had downtrend since the 3rd of July. Really popped out nicely because of the earnings and subsequently come down the day after. But there's lots of volume here on the right side. It's a retest of a trend line. There's probably some moving averages thereabouts. Not quite. That's, we can't have all the confidence in the world with the 300 that's there. So yeah, it's worth a look at for a retest of a trend line for sure, especially if those earnings were good, which it seems like they were. Perhaps it was just a bit of a drag down because of the market on that Friday. I know you like CrowdStrike. Do you
So
play
I
do
like
you play
most.
options on this or?
So yeah, I do play options on CrowdStrike. Another favorite is Net Cloudflare, and I also have Okta. Now Okta hasn't done very well recently. They did decent with the earnings, and the stock was a little bit up. But these are a couple names in the cybersecurity. I also have Zscaler. Sometimes I play options on, but CrowdStrike is one of the most favorite ones to play options.
It's interesting to see the volume down here next to your head. The day before earnings was quite high in volume. Normally it's the day of the earnings, the day after. But I found that quite interesting, how people may be anticipating that move. Um,
Maybe Crowd reported earnings before open. That could be the case.
but that wouldn't take into account for the day before though, would it?
Yeah, because most of your options trade or any trade you will place if you're having reporting earnings before open, then everything will be a day before, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm with you now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. Let's move on to the next one.
Next is CoreWeave. So CRWV.
Okay. This is the daily chart for CoreWeave. You brought this one up a few weeks ago, didn't you? So nice. Just
Yeah.
had a nice kind of retest of this trend line and kind of slowly moving up nicely, creating a bit of volume here on the right side. Maybe we can get a bit of a move going.
Well,
So okay.
we did have that, the gap down after earnings, where the stock was pretty high flying stock, and then the earnings kind of sort of disappointed, and we had that big dip. Um, the stock went down to almost close to $90, and at that point after the earnings, and I think now we are starting to see that sort of reversal. However, you have this 50-day, not 50 day, sorry, 20-day SMA coming up right on top of it. So we want to see that break before we can make an assessment that we are in an uptrend, because we might see rejection from that and continue the trend downwards.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You can also draw another trend line here from the peaks. So you've got that kind of broadening wedge almost kind of coming down there.
Yeah.
So like you say, get through the moving averages, then make a move here, then maybe come back down to retest that area. So maybe being a bit patient on this name would be the best way to go. We do have a comment here for Money Manage after hours it was for CrowdStrike. So
Okay. So
interesting to see.
that
Yeah,
so so our theory was doesn't make any sense. Okay.
it does make sense, but not in this
Not
case. Yeah.
not in the crowd. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right.
But yeah, I'm gonna stick this one on the watch list as well. I think I'm writing down everything at the
And no,
moment.
I think CoreWeave is a very, very interesting stock, since it IPO'd, and I mean it could play as a very massive, you know, multi-bagger if you have the capacity to hold couple of years.
You heard it here first. Right, let's move on to the next one then.
Next is MNB. I'm not sure what it is, but let's see.
It is it
It's
a, not a
M-
typo, is it?
no,
Because we've got NYMEX futures.
so it's from Money Manage. AM, is it MongoDB, or you're looking for MNB Holdings Corporation?
I don't even have any price action on here. What's this?
Okay, so while we wait for Money Manage to confirm, let's next is Monday.
It could be this one. Minboss Resources Limited,
No, so
MNB on the
un-
ASX.
so let's move on to Monday. Once Money Manage confirms, we'll go back to that one.
Okay, let's do that.
MNDY.
Because I know you want to talk about Monday.
Listen, I mean, I'm telling you, man, Monday is a it's um, coming up nicely. Is gonna come close to the 20-day SMA. I want to see it's starting to fill that gap. You see that massive, the last 3 days of buying in. I think the stock. I'm not saying the stock has bottomed yet because we could see a rejection from 20-day SMA. But
yeah,
again, I think from a long-term position trade standpoint, and this is a position trade for me, I started building out my position at these levels. I even have I've sold puts at 150, which are handsomely up. And keep in mind these are monthly options, not weekly options. So there's a lot that can change within 4 weeks. So today I might be up 85% on my puts, and I might be down next week. So keep that in mind. But I think 150 is a very attractive price for me to get into Monday. There are a lot of gaps on Monday. Sorry, not a lot of it. This is a very big gap, and then I think the fair value is about $345 for this stock. So
yeah,
if you want to,
342 I've got.
right, so if you're getting at 150, even $200, that's a decent upside. Now, keep in mind the small and medium sized businesses still buy Monday, and see they're pushing CRM feature. When I say CRM, a customer relationship management feature, is a pretty big module of theirs. And the second one is the service module, which targets ServiceNow, not particularly, and your Zendesk and similar softwares. um, it's still in the infancy stage, but the way this is progressing, couple years down the road, as more companies they buy Monday as a project management software, and then they start to say, hey, why do we need this another software when this software can do the same thing? That's what the goal is for the companies. And again, Monday is not the only company that does it. Salesforce is doing the same thing, ServiceNow is doing the same thing. It's just that their cost is much higher. So for
Yeah,
small and medium businesses, they want to keep their costs low.
definitely. I think going back to the chart, you raised a good point on the 20 moving average, but there's also recent support back in April, which will act as resistance around this sort of area. But what I do like on this chart, and I think a lot of people might be looking at this chart and thinking, oh, actually, I spotted something there, which is the volume that's been created just in these last few weeks. A lot of volume is coming. You can see it at the bottom of the chart as well. This kind of raised volume here, sustained from the last few months. There's definitely interest at these levels. But I think for me personally, I've got this obviously box drawn out from when we bought it up. I think probably last week.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of that for a second. But I see a scenario in which that the stock can keep trading up to here, maybe reject and come back down to this kind of the volume that you see on the right side here. So maybe around about 180 could be a good time to potentially start a position for the future. I know you're already in it and you're adding for the long term, but that could be a scenario in which that I start my position because I'm not going to start it here
So
personally.
just to give if you go back in time, in 2023 October, the stock dipped to $124, and 1 year later, the stock returned 165%. The stock was at $202. So again, as
Yeah,
I said,
no,
this is going to be a positional trade. It's not like next week we are going to see back to the all-time highs. But if you can hold up for a 1 year or so, 3 4 quarters, you could see some massive returns, which will be higher than what you will get in S&P 500.
it's interesting you say that as well because it has a history of recovery. So
Mhm.
that's always good that a stock can have that kind of interest to kind of come back. Similar to, not similar at all, but Netflix has had that recovery as well, so that will bode well for its future.
Yeah.
It's kind of comparing two very different industries, but yeah, hopefully you get what I mean. Okay,
Oh,
that's
sorry. So it was MongoDB, not.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like MongoDB, amazing.
Okay, well, I
What
didn't
was the
actually know I
run
had
of
earnings last week.
MongoDB?
But
That was like massive. 5 days, the stock is up 45%.
that's crazy.
For a for
All of these names are kind of moving really nicely this earnings.
Yeah, for a stock that this expensive, you run up 45%. Imagine how much undervalued you were.
Does it have the fair value? Do you have the fair value for this one or not?
Yeah, let me get you the fair value. Give me one
It
second.
seems like the SaaS companies are kind of rebounding
They
quite a
are.
bit.
So the fair value that I see is about $315. So before this jump, the stock was trading at $230, right? Something like that. And the fair value was 239. So right now I'm saying 315. It's a little bit overvalued. But this is from one metric.
Yeah,
It's like the market loves it. You have a strong buy in the quant, you have the buy rate from the Wall Street analysts, you have buy ratings from all the other analysts.
it looks
No,
like it's trying to make a push towards this volume at 360,
yeah.
which is also coincidentally obviously resistance there um, on that part of the screen,
I
which is
mean
just
this
before 2025. This is a
yeah,
weekly chart as well. So
this stock was used to be like a $400-$500 stock, and it really, I guess it took multiple quarters for it to come down. The bottom was 139 or 138, something like that. 141. That's it.
wow,
That's yeah,
yeah, massive.
that's it, right?
I don't have anything to add to this, to be fair. So obviously, maybe a retreat back down to the gap field, but I don't see that happening anytime soon since the move has been 40%. Like any post earnings that we talk about, let it kind of smooth out, maybe base. Yeah, go from
Yeah,
there. But I'm not
still
looking at
not
this.
the optimal entry point. You could have an optimal entry point for stock that have a gap down, and if they're a good business, so then yes. Next is UNH.
We got a lot of names for you this week.
Yeah, I mean UNH is one stock that I actually thought of getting in, but I never got in because I diverted the funds to other stocks. But see, now it's forming a base around the $300, $310 after that gap,
Yeah,
right?
this is
That's
nice.
look at that beautiful base that's forming there.
Yeah, so you've got that. It's poking out of a small trend line. You can't quite see on the screen, but
Mhm.
there, that kind of trend line that we've been setting recently is kind of poking out of that, and it closed really nice and full on Friday, given the market was a little bit edgy as well. So this one's obviously a strong name. All the volume here on the right side, so people are definitely excited about it. It's got a lot in the way though. Of course, we've got resistance here, resistance here, resistance here. So perhaps a line around there.
No, I
You would
think
think,
I do
yeah,
think that if you missed adding UNH to your portfolio, I think we still have an opportunity because you see still that little gap there,
this one
right?
here.
Yeah, so if it pulls back to those 270, 80, you still might have an opportunity to get into the UNH. Because again, if with Warren Buffett getting in, most likely is going to be a long-term hold. Collecting those nice dividend checks while you're holding UNH, and I think from a long-term perspective, I don't know if we could see a rebound in the next quarter or 2 quarters, but if you have a long-term holding of this stock, I mean, it could rebound to its old glory days, and then you'll be sitting on a nice 100, 200% gains. But again, you'll have to make sure that you are comfortable holding the value stock. This is still a value stock for a long term and collect those dividend checks.
There you go. Not a bad way to make money, really, is it?
Hmm.
Awesome. Okay.
Next is your stock, Baba.
Alibaba, yes. An incredible day on Friday, up 13%. I must admit, I was looking this week and I thought, I've got my stop loss down here, and I got lucky. Let's be honest, I got lucky because my stop loss was down here at 117. And I thought, obviously, on Thursday, I was looking at this thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to get on with work, leave it to play as it is. Stop loss is there. I'm just really happy I didn't move it up level because sometimes when I get the initial move, I move it up level. But with the Chinese names, it's very hard to do that, of course, because they gap up and gap down overnight. But yeah, Kate, I'll admit it. I got a bit lucky on this one. It moved up nicely to 132. My first target price was hit. It was smashed through. And I obviously took the profits there. I'm letting the rest run towards 142. See if we can get that in the weeks to come. And then beyond that, we're looking at kind of 175. I think I have it on my other chart. I don't think I have it on this chart. Oh, I do, yeah. So there you go. 175 is the kind of long-term target for Barber in the next kind of 6 to 9 months. I mean, sometimes you get lucky in trading, right? It's not. Let's talk about this as like a thing, because yes, I've held it through earnings, which is quite risky. Of course, I don't do it with every stock, and I certainly sized down going into earnings, which I did to a certain extent here, because on another portfolio I did cut the position before earnings, but the average price was much lower, so it made a lot of sense. But yeah, do you ever get almost stopped out but not quite stopped out? Do you ever get
Oh,
lucky
yeah.
like that?
I mean,
Yeah,
this whole stop
it's part
loss.
of trading.
I think that has happened to me more often. So sometimes that's why I don't put the stop loss, which is not the right thing to do. But the good news is, because if you are doing credit spreads, the max loss is whatever the spread value you have paid. Either on the credit side you'll get the credit, or on the debit side what you have paid. So if I'm playing very small, like $100 $200 credit spread or debit spread, then I don't bother putting a stop loss, because then more often than not, the stop loss triggers right before the move up,
Yeah,
right? And that's just how it is. Like, it's a fake
like a
out.
shakeout, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they shake out those trades, they close out. So I joined for larger trades, like for larger ones. Let's say if my spread value is $1,000 and then I'm having a very tight stop loss. Like, I don't care, I'm going to get out at whatever 20 25 30% stop loss. But then I'll tell you, nine, I think nine is too high, but maybe maybe 6 to 7, 6.5 times or 7 times, the stop loss hits, and basically I'm stopped out, and then the stock runs. So I really hate that.
Yeah, that's really frustrating when that happens. And then when something like this happens on the screen, yes, I got a bit lucky, but also I take the positives from this, which is I set the stop loss in the right place.
Yeah.
So I anticipated that it wouldn't get down to these levels, or it would get down to levels, but not quite. In the worst case scenario, and it moved up subsequently after that. But it's there for a reason, and I had that, and it saved me from losing money.
I,
So yeah, there's positives in this as well.
yeah, and it seems like this time around at this earning season. I mean, I know you don't play that many earnings, but I think
No.
from your thesis standpoint, I think this earning season has been pretty good. Like, I mean, this played out like textbook for you, however how you planned out.
Exactly. I mean, let's go through that slightly. We had the breakout here on the trend line a couple of weeks ago now, and it came back down to retest it. And this is obviously my entry point. And obviously in the retest of the trend line, of course, the following day it wasn't so good, but you kind of you hold it. You got the stop loss. In fact, I kind of got lucky twice. Okay, uh, but yeah, then it kind of moves up nicely, and
Listen,
yeah,
luck is also part of trading.
it
Like, it's
is.
not
It
just
is. Yeah.
so.
Some people think it's only part of that, but no, there is definitely some sort of method to the madness that we trade with. Anyway, that's enough about Alibaba.
Yeah, indeed.
Let's move on.
IREN. That's the last ticker I have, and if we have a couple minutes, we can go through a couple more tickers.
Yeah, I think we want to touch on Lulu. As we mentioned kind of before the stream started, we want to touch on Lulu. I think Kaye's pretty keen on that one. We do like that stock. Who else is reporting on it? Maybe we can have a look at Neo as well, chart wise, because I know it's
Okay.
not looking too bad. So we'll have those two, and then we'll call it a day there, I think. So IREN, this is a Bitcoin related play, I believe. 26. Wow. Oh, one of my friends, Fibonacci trading on X. He's very big into following this stock, and he's been in this stock for quite some time. So I'm pretty sure he's feeling pretty good about himself right now. I might send him a little message a bit later on, but anyway, that's unrelated. I mean, wow. I don't even know where to start with this. Let's get rid of these
I mean, the
lines.
last 5 days, the stock is up 25%. So, like, we have some major movers this week. MongoDB 45%. This stock 25%. 5 days, huh?
Volume starts there, so I've drawn a trend line there. So the trend line is looking pretty nice, even from this standards. I wouldn't be buying it here at all. It's just not where that's not where my strategy lies. I mean, even if the gap feels around about 23, it's still pretty frothy to be buying there. There's nothing else really supporting it apart from maybe a touch of volume here on the right side. But yeah, just a massive congratulations to people holding this. But I definitely wouldn't be buying it here, and I'm assuming you wouldn't be buying it here either.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, when it's a gap down, it's a good company. And if it's a long term hold or a position trade, then yes, I would get in. But if it's a gap up, there's no way I'm going to touch it.
Big gap up as well,
Yeah.
because the gap up, the move it made on the day would have been a lot bigger than the 14% it suggests. So it would have been up 27% at one point on
Yeah.
Friday, which is
Absolutely.
incredible. Which just shows that people are taking profits, and rightly so, with a move like this in the last few months. There's no harm in taking profits.
If you think about, like, I trade Mara on the Bitcoin side, right? That's the mining companies. So I just stick with this one particular name. Um, and year to date, the stock is like down 5% flat, but it hit its all-time high of $20 and 50 cents, and hit low of $10 this entire year. And it has just played ping pong in this range. So I love when stocks are in the range, because you can keep selling puts, sell calls, rinse and repeat. So I've been doing that on Mara. So I'm happy with that. When you
Yeah,
hit gap up, I don't like it actually much.
stick to what you know. It's a big thing in trading, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can always learn new things and stick to new things, but there's a process within that. But definitely having those core stocks that we go back to week after week, I think, is very important as traders. Right, let's move on to the next one. I think Lululemon, isn't it?
Yes. So reporting earnings, Lulu, man, listen, I mean, I will tell you this: with Lulu, the downside risk is much higher than the upside potential at this point in time, because just the economy is, kind of weakening in terms of all the tariffs happening. And retail stocks generally don't do very well in when it comes to tariff wars and trade issues and all that. Having said that, you also have the holiday season approaching. So we
Yeah.
could see strength. We could see strength from Lululemon in the China market, which I think is going to be the next big market for Lululemon. The brand loyalty still is pretty solid, uh, and there are a lot of gaps here. So I mean, honestly, I'm hoping we actually see a gap down personally for another $50 to $100. I'm happy. I'll keep collecting the stuff. I know a lot of people hate Lululemon. Listen, man, when it's back to $500, I'll come back and tell you, see, I told you so. Um,
That's what they all say, Kay.
yeah. But look, but I'm going on air. I'm telling you, right?
Yeah, of
I want
course.
to stop and
Yeah.
do that, because it is definitely a position trade for me.
So for me, I like the 161 level. I know it's still another 40% drop, which
Exactly.
sounds a bit dramatic, but
And you could see that in Lululemon. That's what the whole point is. So if you really want to play Lululemon, I would use Strangle and not an Iron Condor, because Strangle is basically when you expect a higher move in the implied move, versus Iron Condor is when you don't expect a massive move on either side. So from an option trading standpoint, use a Strangle to play Lululemon. And if you don't want to play, don't play earnings at all. Just wait for the stock to make a move and then decide, because a move up would actually get you to that gap fill. But then you also have a lot of resistance point. You have the 50-day moving
yeah.
average, and you have the 300-day moving average, 200-day moving average, all coming down. So that's a lot of resistance. And the broader economic environment does not support Lululemon is gonna fill that gap anytime soon. I mean, something could happen. We could get a surprise, but I expect a downside move as opposed to an upside here.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think having all that resistance above, you can kind of see it on the screen there. This is the gap fill Kaye was talking about. It's just there's so much in the way, not only on the daily time frame, but the weekly time frame, the monthly time frame. It's all there. And it's going to be very, very hard unless you get very good market conditions and very good news to kind of go alongside that. As Kaye touched on there, it's going to be hard for that move to play out. That coupled with a potential kind of bear flag that we've got pointed out here. Kind of going into earnings is not what people want to see. So that's a potential play out. We kind of break down even further. But like I said, I think 161 to 170, that sort of area, even I would be interested. And I'm not a big fan of Lululemon. but I'm interested in making money. So
Yeah, I mean,
um,
see, at some point in time, keep in mind, tickers provide you asymmetric plays. No matter how much you hate a particular ticker or you don't like an area, like at some levels, and keep in mind, this is not a retail name. This is an institutional name. So institutionals will start to pile in as it gets cheaper because end of the day, it's all about valuation.
let's talk about an asymmetrical play and valuation and showing. Let's move on to Neo. For
Hmm.
the last stock of the day, I've been talking about this one for years. Everyone
But
knows that.
before we begin, Neo, can you give us like what's the latest going on in Neo? Because I know you used to cover Neo a lot, but we haven't heard much from you. So tell us what's going on with Neo in general, and then tell us about the asymmetrical play.
Okay, so infrastructure in China, so the battery swapping technology and obviously all the power around Neo as well is kind of really building, has been building for the last couple of years, but really accelerating this year. Two new models recently with the Onvo brand and the Neo brand, which has been really well represented, no, well received, shall we say, and pre-orders are coming nicely. So we're expecting pretty good deliveries on Tuesday. No, Monday actually, tomorrow. So tomorrow's the first, and obviously followed by that on Tuesday with the earnings report, which will just kind of give really good guidance, I think, for the future. And that's what investors are seeing, or traders, whatever you want to call it, and that kind of going into there. So the business has been building for years now, specifically in the last year. So obviously with all of these extra products that we've got and the infrastructure that I mentioned before, and the partnerships that they're making as well with other people. So we've had this price action as well, kind of going on the last year or so. It's kind of traded flat. It's had its moments where it's popped up, but we can really see the amount of volume that's kind of being poured into this stock now, and that's the institutions. They're realizing that this stock, well, this company is the real deal. It could go really, really nicely. You can see that represented just in the last 8 weeks. You can see it on the screen. Kind of had a bit of a dip here and kind of moved up really nicely here, and that's based on no news really, apart from the pre-orders from the L90 and the ES8. So, and their promise, or not the promise, I guess they kind of did promise it in a way that there would be net fl- net net profit positive by the end of the year, by the fourth quarter. So I won't get that report obviously until probably March next year, but that is kind of what investors are anticipating. And obviously, William Lee has said many things before, the CEO. He's mentioned many things before. He's promised many things before, and he has obviously failed on those promises. But you get that with these starting up companies. I'm not saying that's okay, but you do get these kind of bold predictions, and he's definitely one of those that has bold predictions. But yeah, I think the company is definitely heading in the right direction. Perhaps the move in the last 3 or 4 weeks has been quite frothy, of course, but I don't think it's unwarranted. I think the stock has been beaten down for so long, it's been building for so long. It makes sense that this is, I think it's kind of fair value at the moment. And you've got these big banks coming out now, Citigroup, and I think, oh, who's the other bank that did they did another kind of price raise yesterday. The average price is about $8. So
$8.
they see this this stock around $8, and that's still another 30% away to the upside. I personally got a very conservative $7.20 target, near term target. Don't have it on the screen right now. I think it is somewhere near, maybe that one. No,
Yeah,
I
you're
don't want
right.
to waste time doing that. But 720 is my near term target, and then obviously $9 you can see up here to the upside. I could talk for a little while about Neo, but that's my kind of overall thoughts. The company as a whole and the fundamentals. The fundamentals are not great in the last few quarters, but they've definitely shown growth, consistent growth. And I think this quarter that we're in now, Q3, when we get that report in November, December, kind of some that sort of time, I think
Mhm.
we'll go, oh wow, actually I should have bought more back in the past. I've got enough, but other investors might think I should have bought more. But yeah, I would. I'm obviously very biased about Neo because I've been following them for years, investing for years. But what are your outside thoughts? Because I've spoken a lot there about Neo.
No,
Yeah.
I do think that just hearing the news on Tesla and the Europe in general, we saw 40% decline in registration in Europe in general for Tesla, but the BYD registrations tripled. So if the BYD registration is tripling, which means that the world is still moving towards electrification, it's just that Tesla has not had the prime time, or has had pretty bad time in the couple weeks, couple months. I like the play. I will tell you this. I don't hate it. I honestly like it. And the way I think I'll play this one, instead of buying shares outright, I'll actually buy leap calls on this one.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing that. Yeah,
And honestly, like for example, let's say if I buy a leap call at the money for January 2027, a 5.5, 5.5, 5.5 strike, I'll pay about $250 for it, right? So if I see a pullback on the stock, let's say on a red day, that's the day I will buy the leap call, and I might have like 10 contracts for it. So that I'm like, okay, I'm done. I control 1,000 shares of Neo, and basically play it to the upside.
exactly. There you go. We'll end it there. Very good things happen for Neo. Even Kaye is looking into Neo, so that's always a good sign for any sort of stock. Okay, let's take that down. We'll go into the closing comments for the week. Obviously, we do have a day off tomorrow, bank holiday, or bank holiday, we call that in the UK. We had that last week, but you've got that tomorrow, which is Labor Day, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
whatever you choose to do, obviously have fun. If you are kind of off and you want to look at trading, maybe just have a look at some past trades. Think about what you might be doing for the week ahead, obviously with the earnings kind of coming up. Also, maybe just take a break, take a week off, perhaps. Sometimes we need that. Yeah, sometimes we definitely need that. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What are your thoughts heading into the week then?
I think my thoughts are that everybody should just enjoy the last few days of summer before we start
Yeah.
fall season. I can't believe it's already September. I thought it was just January, couple months back. And listen, I mean, just enjoy the trade and just have fun. And that's all I say.
Yeah, have fun, but not too much fun out there, ladies and gents. Thank you to Wolf, obviously, for letting us use the platform. We really, really appreciate it. We couldn't do it without you, of course. And yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I'll probably just end it there because I'm going to start waffling, and I've done enough of that today. Take care, everyone. See you next week, Kay.
Bye, buddy. Take care.